question the baker is asking: when designing your games and trying to explore the main core idea, do you ever get? Oh, sorry, I miss. Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me find the question again.
I see it. Do you ever get stuck with how to do
Oh
that?
yeah.
And if so, how do you work through it? I think it's natural to be a little bit stuck sometimes, because if it's a hard problem, I don't think you expect to necessarily know the answer all the time. Sometimes just calendar time going by will solve this, right? So, your mind is very sophisticated and you're thinking about things all the time, even if you don't realize it. And you're solving problems. So, when you play a puzzle game, if you've played puzzle games, in my experience, often I'll be trying to solve a puzzle and it's hard, and then I just go get lunch or I go to bed and I wake up in the morning and I know the answer to the puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And games can be great because they really highlight that. They show you very clearly that that's happening, but that's happening for you about everything all the time. And if you're trying hard to understand how to make a game good, for example, you're trying to solve that puzzle all the time in the background when you go to lunch and whatever. And so sometimes just more time will get you there. However, sometimes this works better than other times. And the times it works better for me, and maybe this is generalizable to everybody, but I don't know because I only know my own experience. For me, when I'm drowning in a lot of to-do list kind of stuff, like I'm just doing a bunch of busy work all the time and whatever, and my mind is not in this kind of open, spacious mode, then these kind of ideas don't really show up. Even if I've figured them out at some level, they won't actually show up because there's no room for them to just. Maybe they're very quiet and they need quiet for me to see them or hear them or something, right? So yeah, that's one thing is just time and quietude will often help, and not being stressed. And like, even if you're stressed, dude, I've been running out of money so many times in so many different ways on these projects. That's very stressful. I've been through that so many times. But it helps to just be able to step outside that, at least for a little bit, and just be like, okay, the reason I'm doing all this stress is so that this thing can be good. So let's just go into an area where it's just me and this thing. And yes, we might run out of money next week. That's next week. It's okay. For right now, it's okay. Maybe tomorrow morning I'll start solving this problem again. But I'm just going to make some progress on this. And so insulating yourself. But, playing into this whole internet thing, the noise of the internet probably won't help with this, right? So like, if during all your spare time, you're like reading tweets, which I've done a lot of, it's really not helpful toward solving
Takes away that
with this
production
kind of
time, right? And also that incubator time that you mentioned, that you can get away of realizing how to solve the problems.
It puts your brain in a different place,
true.
Right? And it's just not as receptive or generative a place. It's not as creative of a place.
True.
So get off social media if you're having problems. You can get back on later. I don't even mean this as a prescription for life. I just mean, like, take a week. Like, look, there didn't used to be social media for thousands of years.
True.
And then there was. So you can just take a week off and it's fine. And you might find that you're much more creative in that mode. But then the other thing that I do to solve this problem is I just work on other stuff. Because the thing about games is there's so much to do that even if, so with the story thing, for example, I mentioned I didn't know for a long time. I knew kind of generally what I wanted to do with the story, but then I would try to make it specific and it wouldn't quite be good enough. And I was just like, I don't, I don't know what to do with this. So I work on other stuff. Like I had to program things and I had to design levels and I had to, review other levels that were designed by other people. And, um, you can do those things. You can do the things that are easy to do right now and just buy yourself some time on the other things. Now, there's downsides to that. Maybe if you need to, you know, like if you don't know the story yet, but you need to do art production for the game because that's most of the work. Maybe if you want the story to be reflected in the art, that's not going to happen properly because you didn't know the story yet. And that's true. But we're only human and we can only do so much,
True.
right?
True.
And so just you do what you can. And there's always going to be a downside and you just learn to live with that. But that's the best answer that I can give. And the other thing I will just say is again, like what we were saying with this earlier, if you wrestle with this problem a lot over time, you just get naturally better at it.
True. True.
And so it just becomes, you become better at solving creative problems.
Have you always had this mentality to your life, by the way, or is it something that developed
No, I
out
learned
through?
this.
I see.
I learned this from making video games.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Nathan is asking, currently you're finishing the language and the game. Do you think that you will keep working in the games after, or do you plan to maybe approach different projects?
I'll probably stay in games. I know 2 or 3 more games that I would just like to make
I see.
with the current engine and code, and maybe even some of the art assets that we have.
Oh, so you already have the
Um,
ideas for those as well. I see. I see.
yeah, one of them I made the prototype of more than 10 years ago,
Oh, okay.
13 years ago,
Okay.
and it's really fun. And I just never finished the game.
I see.
Because I wanted to do this small Sokoban game first, and that turned into a giant project. So yeah, I mean, I do wonder once in a while, like, why am I in games? Like, on the one hand, I just got done telling you how rewarding it is to be a creative
True.
person and to have this kind of viewpoint. On the other hand, I'm kind of disappointed by the games industry as a whole. I'm like, why am I like, if I go back in time to when I started, there were quite a few people who had like a lot of ideas about how they were going to do interesting things and be creative and all this stuff. And you look at now that we've had this whole indie revolution when like almost all the games on almost all platforms are indie games, um, they can be creative in certain small ways. Like, oh, here's my different character, or I'm doing a card battler, but it also has sweeping the floor of your shop in between rounds playing cards or whatever. Like there's all this innovation in the small, but the number of designers who are really trying to do really new big stuff is very small. It's less probably even in an absolute number than it was 20 years ago, and the industry is so much bigger. So as a proportion of the industry, it's minuscule. It's almost nobody. And so why did that happen? But then also even in terms of just programming excellence, like back when I got into the industry, people were figuring out 3D and it was so hard. And then we had all these first person shooters for years that were like pushing the edge of what's possible. And it was very impressive how they could possibly do graphics this good and all
I
of
think the
that.
reason for this, sorry for interrupting you. I think the reason
Yeah.
for this, I feel like whenever you say that some things like knowledge is accessible for everyone, and everyone can make a game, or everyone can be a firefighter, or everyone can be a police, you will end up in the situation where like you will have a lot of people who are good at it, and you will have some 100 like 100 people only out of like 10 millions who will be the masters of that, knowledge. And I feel like that's what happened to the video game industry as well. That there are so many good games, in my opinion, because for me, I love all the games that I play. But like you said, it's also very true that there are only just a few outstanding games, because it shows
Yeah.
that you let all the people like make games, which is a very cool thing. Because in my opinion, I am more of an emotional person, and I respect emotional stories. But I still feel
Yeah.
like if you give the power to everyone, you will end up in a society where like there will be a lot of people who are making games, but they are not like trying to master it, right? They are just doing
Yeah.
it for themselves, which is fine and which is very good in my opinion. Because like I said, for me, all the games are great because like you can see the personal touch and connection and the stories that people wanted to tell. For example, if they lose their father, they will write a story about losing a father, and you can resonate with it if you had the same experience. But a lot
Yeah. I
of
mean,
people are
and
not into like making a great game, like you said, because they haven't been thought of it, or they haven't been passionate about it, or might be this the other end of the same coin, that they would like to, but they might not have the knowledge, right? And again, we can go back to like education, right? So
yeah, I mean, it is so hard to make games that, like, I can't blame people for not doing them the way that I want them or whatever, right? Um, but yeah, it's weird. So the thing that you mentioned about maybe you have the same number of good or top people as the field grows,
yeah,
and then the field really just fills out. I think that explains a lot, but it doesn't explain everything actually, because I think that if you just count the individual number of people in that top of designers, it's less now than it was when I was coming into the game industry, right? And why is that? Like, why would it be? I understand why it would be the same or the same adjusted for population, but if it's less, and maybe this is just me, who's to say that I have an accurate read? I might be measuring this wrong, but if it really is less, um, why are we so uncreative now,
I
right?
think because most of the people nowadays are not thinking globally. I remember our professor at university, also university example. See,
Yeah,
I can say that I learned a lot from university professors, even if it wasn't programming. But he told us that you have to like think globally, but act like for your own personal fields in order to gain a global, success. And it's not like success like have a
yeah,
lot of money or be famous or be powerful, but to give back to the society. That's what he meant, like having this
yeah,
ultimate goal, global goal and result. And that's how I think a lot of people fail in their field, that they would like to make something big, but they do not think it's about it globally. They just, think about it
yeah.
in their personal bubble, if you can say so.
Yeah, but so then in terms of my own personal choices, to go back to the question, like I've been game guy my whole life, and that's been great. But it's not that hard to just look around, and it's like, okay, there's Elon Musk over there catching rockets and doing all these electric cars and stuff. And there's all these people doing AI stuff, most of which I think is trash, but some of which may be highly impactful. Like I kind of feel like, why am I wasting my time in games? And I mean, the answer is, well, the art of it and the interestingness of it and all that, and maybe I bring something that wouldn't be there if I weren't here. But it feels like sometimes I'm just not able to make that much of a contribution from my like I feel like the whole industry is ignoring the general direction that I went in and that some other creative people went in, and they're just making slop, right? It's like a slop industry, which it always was, but now it's like slop with very little special stuff anymore. And it's just like, oh, if that's the way it's going to go, should I really be here anymore? I don't know. And I'm honestly, I'm unlikely to change what I do, but I do feel sad about it. I feel sad about what the games industry is today, even though it should be on paper pretty cool that everyone can make games and that was supposed to bring all this creativity in, and it just kind of hasn't. Um, maybe this is a temporary situation and we'll recover from it. I don't actually know. But yeah, I do wonder. So I was just thinking about this like a week or two ago, because there's all this AI stuff and it's mostly trash. But I was like, if I were to make a company, the goal of which was to have a big impact on the world, and I were to use AI, if I were to go pitch this to like a venture capitalist of like, please give me $50 million to do this company, which is stupid because it's not like I didn't have some portion of that in the past. But like, to say like, hey, what would this thing be that would have a large impact? And like, I came up with an idea right away. That's like, yeah, I could go do that, and maybe it would succeed, maybe it would fail, but if it succeeded, it would be considered very important in the world. Whereas what I do right now is like, yeah, I make some video games, like, whatever, man. Um, so I have doubts sometimes, but the plan for at least the foreseeable future is keep making games, and maybe that means I'm just stupid. I don't know. It's what I'm doing.
I see. Thank you.